Hello and welcome to the Bear Right Trail podcast. I am your host, Sam Kirk, and tonight I am here with a friend, a wonderful runner, a coach, and just an absolute stud of the roads and trails, Karen Dunn. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam. What a nice introduction there. I'm a stud.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and people are going to learn about just how much of a stud you are if they don't know already. Karen is a coach. She is a trainer. She is an athlete for quite some time now. She is a VDOT coach. She is also an ACE trainer as well, and she is someone who can take people through great journeys in running, whether they're just getting started out, trying to tune things up, trying to take it to the next level. Just hitting a few absolute, high points here that would be, the number one thing in just about anybody's running career. Karen qualified for the 2020 Olympic marathon trials. She was one of 34 women over the age in the 40 plus field there of 500 women who qualified for the Olympic trials in 2020. And she had qualified for that 2020 Olympic trials in the 2019 Chicago marathon, where she was the third master, and that's world marathon major. Very, very big deal there as well. Karen has moved into the ultra marathon space. She's running lots of races up in the northern Pennsylvania mountains. Big wins for her at Eastern States 100. That was an absolute crusher of one up there in 2023. Also wins at 50K and
a little bit too.
You crushed your soul as well. But also wins at Heiner and World's End, right?
Well, second place. So
okay.
There, but chasing the first girl for sure.
Yeah, chasing those, yeah. And also a age group win at Grindstone 100K this past year down in Virginia. So just, some of those, shining points in Karen's running career. And so this is uncommon ground for us on the podcast here to have an Olympic trials qualifier. So congratulations on that. And we are here to find out what makes that happen.
Awesome.
So, Karen, share with us a little bit about what got you into running, sort of the story that brought you to these great achievements here, in your 40s.
Yeah, I think I've been running, really my whole life. Started in 7th grade, and when I ran that mile in gym class, this is real, but when I ran that mile in gym class and, came through first and, got some pretty high accolades from teachers and students and felt pretty good about it. Just that adrenaline from, beating the boys and, all the girls really kind of made me think like maybe I got something here. I used to play soccer and whatnot, and I was an active kid, but I think if you get that first place win is always true to your heart, right? Even though it was gym class, right? But either way, I think it kind of started there because from there, I signed up for track, and then got recruited to run cross country in high school. When I was in 8th grade, they came to the track and actually said, hey, we want you to run for the cross country team next fall. And I'm like, well, what is that? And then they're telling me like 3 miles. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's really far. But yeah, I think I just had a really good experience with running in high school and middle school, and the friendship that came with it, which has lasted through the years. My best friend today, we ran cross country together and track in high school. So I think it really just blossomed from high school. High school leads to college. I did take quite a break after college because I've always taken running very seriously. So, when my friends were out on a Friday night going to the movies, I was in bed preparing for an invitational the next day. So I just feel like I missed out on a little bit, and
yeah,
it's good for everyone to take a little mental and physical breather. So I did have a period of time after college where I really wasn't running at all. probably for a number of years, really. And then maybe a few years before I had kids, I started running again and found an awesome local running group, and a lot of those folks were doing marathons, which, I when I first joined them and they're like, oh, we're going for a 13-mile run today, I was so excited, like I could hardly sleep the night before that 13-mile run. I was like, oh, I can't wait, I haven't done this since college. And man, did that hurt. It felt like my hip flexors were gonna explode. I mean, it was, getting back into the groove, and picking a 13-mile run was probably not the best option. Either way, I ran with this group for several years and then ended up training with them to do my first marathon, which was Steamtown. And I had a really good experience there. And it just seemed like the longer the race was, the better I would do. So I stuck with marathons for a long time, though. I did those for a number of years and really just tried to keep improving. And at the time, I eventually got into coaching, and I was coaching myself for a number of years, probably up until I broke 3 hours and was running consistently about 251, 252 in the marathon. But at that point, intuitively, my gut just told me if I want to continue to improve, I'm going to need help. So that's when I reached out for coaching for myself, and with Dot McMahon. She's actually crushing it right now as a master in the marathon. I think she just ran maybe in the 220s, 229, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and she's the same age as me, so that's about 48. So she's doing really well for herself. But don't quote me on all that. I don't know her exact stats, age, and finish time, but I know she's doing really well for herself. She runs professionally for Brooks. And one of my friends actually matched me up with her. He said that she might be a good fit for me as a coach, because she was also, a woman master running the marathon. And it was a good match. And she got me to my Olympic qualifying time. And that was quite a journey, I must say. So I was attempting the OTQ on my own, probably for about a year before I reached out for her coaching assistance. But yeah, that was quite the journey. And I think what kind of set that journey off was I ran God's Country Marathon in Potter County, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's a bit of an uphill marathon. So through mile 18, pretty much a steady incline. And then there's, I think, about 2 miles of just climbing outside of their Mount Denton, I think it is, or ski slope that's in that area.
Okay.
But so yeah, it was about an 18-mile climb, and then I thought, well, that's great. When I get to the top of that, then it should be mostly downhill, and they say it is, but it doesn't feel like it. It still felt very rolling.
Yeah.
But I broke 3 hours for the first time there. Probably 2 months before that, I was trying to break 3 at Boston. And I came through at Boston just like a couple seconds over. So I still had that drive. I'm like, I got to go for this sub 3. And so I finally got it. I ran 257 at God's Country. And then after that, I started running in the 250s and such.
Yeah.
But
well, so this might be jumping ahead a little bit in what we were thinking about talking about. But one of the things that you mentioned there just made me think about it. So you have these various backgrounds going on with, well, I mean, it's all within running, but you have your personal journey with running. Then you have that search for a coach, and then you have your professional coaching career as well. So, and you mentioned the idea of like it being a good fit when you had found your coach. And what do you see as a good fit, and what are those kinds of indicators that maybe people can look out for if they are looking for a coach? Because I feel like there are so many people now, they're like, I don't know if I want to do coaching. I don't know if I want to do the online thing or find somebody who's, nearby. this type of thing. So are there some thoughts you have on finding the right fit for a coach?
Yeah, I think, and I go through this too when I have like consultations with potential athletes. Some of them will say, well, I'll get back to you. I'm going to talk with a couple other coaches first. And I like that. I recommend that. Reach out and speak to other coaches, learn what their background is, what they bring to the table, what excites the coach, you know? And like, for example, one thing that excites me is when my athletes get excited. I love that. So really just kind of understanding what their background is and, if they are a higher performer, you know, probably want someone who's been coaching and has some experience, but obviously has a running background as well, because I think we can have these, we have these certifications that, yeah, we learn a lot from, but it's that personal experience that I think enriches the coaching experience. So, for me, learning to race the marathon versus just run it gave me a lot of insight into the grind, the nutrition, what it takes to take 10 seconds off per mile, what it takes to go after big goals if that's what you're interested in. And for me, another thing was like in my personal running experience was mindset. So when I went for that OTQ, I had everything lined up: nutrition, sleep, recovery, and workouts were big. I was doing everything I needed to do, and just reaching for, what else can I be doing? And that's when I found one of my favorite books. And then I'll read it a couple more times. Elite Minds by Stan Beecham. It's amazing. It just helps you to really see what limitations we put on ourselves that we don't even realize. We don't even know we're doing it. And that book really helps you to bring that to light and see it and see how we're limiting ourselves day to day and how much better we can be in all aspects of life if we remove those barriers.
Well, that's one I'm definitely going to have to pick up for sure. I
Yeah.
haven't read that one yet. But yeah, once again, something else you said there like makes me want to dive into another thing here, which has to do with, you went from running marathons or running to racing, right? To actually racing. And, especially for the trail culture, right? I feel like we have so many people at these events, and it's probably true of road and track events and maybe not so much track, but road events for sure, that you have a large number of people who are there running and they're there participating in the event, and certainly fewer who are racing. And then there are those of us also who I think are trying to be racing, but aren't quite making that shift from running these events, especially the really long ones, and into that mindset of racing. So, what are some of the things that you've learned that help make that switch from someone who's running a marathon or a trail event to someone who's really racing it?
It's a great question. And honestly, I think it just comes from doing it over and over again.
I don't know. I keep on doing it, and I feel like I'm going in the wrong direction personally. I'm like getting more into. I'm more of a runner of these events and less of a racer of them than when I started.
I don't think so. You need someone to interview you, and we'll see that modesty. But yeah, I think just doing it over and over again gives you the experience of, well, how do I feel when I start at this pace, or how do I feel when I'm taking this nutrition? I feel like I'm still figuring out trails, right? I don't have that figured out yet. Nutrition, you saw me at the end of World's End 100K, and I think I said, I'm never doing this again. Signed up for more races. Of course I am, because I'm still going to try and figure out that nutrition and the recovery. I think recovery after the races, I think I do well with that. And I really listen to my body and take recovery seriously, especially after those really long events. I don't jump back into it. In fact, I really enjoy a little bit of time off after those events. But getting back to your question, learning to race it, and it's hard because every race and trail is different. The terrain is mostly different, although, most of the stuff that I've been doing in Pennsylvania, they're fairly similar trails. so they don't really change a whole lot. But just learning how's my body going to respond to this climb or this amount of elevation. If I can run a shorter 25K, can I do that really fast, and then can I try and learn from that and take that into the 50K? Again, I think it's experience, it's trial and error, and figuring out what your body can do. But also, proper training is going to set you up well for a race. Ultimately, that baseline going into a race matters a lot. It matters. I don't want to say, well, it kind of does matter more than anything. You got to have that base level of fitness going into these events, I think. And I think that's probably where the majority of the people struggle, because they're not sure how to structure, day to day, or what kind of speed workouts they should be doing, or maybe they're not doing any at all. And just running hills. So I think there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, I think it does it gets challenging, especially, I'm outside of a coaching structure right now myself, and it gets harder and harder to do the hard workouts, right? Those ones that are really building fitness, and you gravitate towards the things you like. So a nice hilly 10-12 mile trail run is like that's my bread and butter. I love being out there. But if I just keep doing that over and over and over again, I just kind of get slower and slower, um, and just basically only good at doing that at a relatively modest pace. And yeah, I feel it happening, and I find that that I think that coaching structure, that part of coaching is important, that reminder for so many people. And I also think in trail, we have this tendency in the running part of it, especially, with the longer and longer distances, and the idea of, you really got to pace yourself. You don't want to, get above that threshold line early, and things along those lines. Really gets, at least for me, it's almost like I think I can't even be in a racing mindset for the first 6-7 hours of an event, and it's really, sometimes when you get into that dark place late in a race, it's hard to switch on to say, oh, now I'm going to start racing. I'm here in a bunch of pain and I'm going to start racing. I think that mindset, that racing mindset, and how to engage in that for the entire event but not overdo it, is something of probably a marathon skill that I'm hoping maybe I can find again myself.
I find that interesting, though. So you're saying that you don't necessarily start a race in a racing mindset and try to maybe relax a little bit more, but then later in the race try and make that switch?
Well, I feel like I intentionally I try to keep myself calm, like not be racing other people. It's like, oh, you got to keep it in yourself, because you start racing, then you blow up, 5 hours in or something into a 9 hour effort, because you've really, really overdone it. But it's just as easy to never get in it as well when you use that kind of approach. So I think that the racing mindset in ultra racing is very hard. It's got to be so much harder. Clearly at certain margins, like someone racing a 5K who's really dialed in is completely different than someone racing a 5K who, is there but not fully focused. It's just those at the ultra distance, you have so much more time for it to really spread out, whereas you might have a 1350 5K person, and in 30 person is the person that can't make that shift, but they're still a 1435K runner, right? Like they're still, super fast, but but they're still 40 seconds behind, the person that's super dialed in. So anyway, I'm diverging a little bit.
That's okay. That sounds like a mindset. I don't want to say issue, but sounds like something you can change with your mindset. And also, what you made me think about when you were sharing that with us is patience. That was one thing too, that like in the marathon, I don't think people have patience. Like that's the one thing that race distance taught me. So you can be primed and ready to go on the start line, and the first 20, if you're like truly throwing down a race in the marathon, you will really kind of hold your marathon pace through mile 20. And, I was always taught the race starts at mile 20. Then
Yeah.
that's when we start to ease onto the gas pedal. And even with 6 miles left, it's still a long time that you can really kind of blow up. So for me at Chicago, at mile 20, I felt really good, but I thought to myself, hey, I still have 6 miles. I don't want to ruin what I got. I'm still on pace. So I just kept it going for the next three. And then at mile 23, that's when I started to ease onto the gas pedal. But and I emptied the tank on that finish. So I think, a similar story for the ultras. It's a long race and a lot can happen along the way, as we know. Good and bad, right? But I think it's the same thing. It's a race of patience and dialing into how you feel and what your perceived exertion is. But I don't know. That might be hard for you because you're so fast.
Well, I think that it is. I think that maybe ultra running, ultra trail running is kind of going through I would say like a public transition. So we like the narrative from, a bunch of, my buddies when I first got into it, was, what's the, what's the strategy for your 100K? It was like, go out slow and fade. Like that's the idea. Or it's just it's survival. It's just an junk food eating contest. These types of things. That is changing. Like still people talking about, and we're going to get into this, how important fueling these efforts is, and how that is really part of the training, is the fueling, is the processing of the calories, is the gut training and all these types of things. But the speed is coming into it, the mentality that you go for it from the gun in these 100K efforts. They're running sub 6 minute pace for the first half of Black Canyon this year, that kind of stuff. And it just really is ramping up, and so that whole idea of you just go out and just wait for everybody else to die isn't really a strategy that works anymore in this sport. And that's probably because the people at the top end are dialing in that nutrition, are getting into these different interventions that I think some of us were like, myself included in this, kind of curious about, but also kind of like, hey, is that really for me? Is that really something that is worth it for me to do? Should I really just maybe stretch a little bit more and maybe just try to make sure that I sleep and not drink so much coffee or whatever, like, so there is lots of science out there right now around nutrition. What are some of the things that you're finding intriguing in this part of, this part of the sport and the science around it?
Well, I think things that I'm curious about would be, like ketones and bicarb and heat training.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot there. It's just not, it doesn't seem as though from things that I've read and listened to, it doesn't sound like we know for sure, like when to use, like, let's say ketones and bicarb. It doesn't sound like everyone knows for sure yet, like where it's applicable and how it best fits into what race distances and the impact of it. So for example, ketones, I've been playing around with those. So I'll drink it before a hard workout. Hard workout is maybe 10 miles long, although I did take it on a 20-miler and that worked out well. But, I feel like, I don't know if it's a placebo effect, but I feel like I feel a little bit stronger, maybe just more tuned in when I take it. So I do like it. Kind of find myself gravitating towards using it, especially like I said before a workout. And then in terms of what I want to know is, I mean, they taste horrible. I don't know if you've ever had them.
I have not even tried them yet. What's the protocol that you're doing? Like, so how long before a workout are you taking them?
So, I mean, I'm probably not doing it as I should. I would say if I'm going to recommend someone use it, I would say use it an hour before your workout. I probably throw it down maybe 20 minutes before and hope it
Okay.
kicks in at least for the last couple intervals. But yeah, I think it's recommended to take it about an hour before,
Okay.
just so it has time to get into your system and throughout. But in turn, what I really want to know is, and maybe I'll try this at Heiner. I'm running Heiner 50K in April. Is how is it going to taste at mile 15 in a race?
So would you
And
take it at mile 15?
I feel like I want to try. I feel like I want to try. Yeah, because I don't hear anyone really doing that yet. And I think that's where the mystery is currently. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm not reading and listening to the right, um, research, but I don't think people know yet at the longer distances how's it going to impact you. So they do mention that it can cause GI distress, and we know that that's the last thing you want in an ultra, whether it causes nausea or what other issues, you can feel from GI distress. And I usually do get some kind of issue. Usually I'm nauseous as hell.
This sounds like a terrible idea, Karen. I
Well,
don't know
well,
what.
I know. That's why I'm like, but but we won't know unless we try. So,
Yeah.
once it's down, it's fine. I have to chase it with something, just a quick swig of something else, but once it's down, I don't feel like when I go into my workouts, I forget I took it. I don't taste it. It doesn't upset my stomach. I don't have GI issues in those 10-mile workouts. So again, I think the mystery is no one, at least the elites that I know of, are too afraid they're going to mess up their race. They have too much at stake to just
Yeah.
try that in the middle of a race. So I don't have anything at stake. So, why,
Yeah.
why
What's the
not give it
worst?
a
You
shot?
just might not get a new axe. That's like
True,
that'd be the
true.
worst.
Ketone or axe, but yeah, I mean, if I can, honestly, I probably will end up feeling nauseous and not be able to take it, but I'll do my best. I'll report back.
So have you? So you've been working with some ketones pre workouts. Like the results there. Have you tried bicarb as well?
No, but well, no, not really. Maybe kind of. Before we switch to that, though, just
Okay.
last thing on ketones, um, before we switch gears, is I think ketones can be used after for like recovery as well. It's supposed to help with focus, energy, stamina. So you could see how that would support both your workout and post-workout recovery as well. But yeah, the bicarb, I have not really used it. I mean, I did look at Precision Hydration, and actually, I'm gonna maybe quick look that up again. But Precision Hydration's 1500 preload seemed to have something like that in it, and I do use that. So
So that's a pre-race. Like it
yeah,
says, preload.
yeah, preload. So it's very salty and information.
Just be electrolyte preload.
So yeah, it's more of an electrolyte preload. I don't know enough about the bicarb, but there's sodium bicarbonate, potassium bicarbonate, calcium carbonate, and
Well,
magnesium.
sodium bicarbonate is, yeah, that's bicarb.
Okay, so it does have it. That's what I thought. And I gotta say, those are good. So maybe I am using a little bit of
A
bicarb.
little bit, yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit. So I'll do that like the night before a race. I'll take one tab, and then the morning of the race, I'll take another tab. And honestly, anytime I've used it, I've had great success. My races have been really strong, at least through the halfway point. And I think one thing I want to do also with that is have a bottle prepared in my drop bag for like the halfway point, because
Yeah.
it has those electrolytes, but also um, it has a little bit of fizziness to it. So I feel like that can help settle the stomach a little bit if you do get
Yeah.
just later in the race of a longer race.
Yeah, I'm curious about the sodium bicarb. I have a mile race coming up.
Oh yeah, Yardley Main Street.
No, no, the Masters Mile at University of Pennsylvania
Oh nice.
at the indoor track festival
I heard a
coming up
bunch of you
here.
guys
Yeah.
were doing that. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm a
So,
little like FOMO. That would be awesome to do.
well, I think that you could still do it. I'm sure
Probably.
there's,
I haven't really been training for a mile though. Have you been doing workouts for this?
not really. I put on a pair of spikes once and that just about did me in. So I did 4 200s and I felt like my Achilles was going to rip off. And I mean, I was planning on doing 8 200s. So, but after four, I was like, I got to get out of these shoes. This is enough for the first time.
Oh,
And I felt fast in them. I mean, I felt quick. I haven't run in a pair of spikes in 20 years though.
were they
So
old spikes? Are they 20 years old?
no, no. John Becker, I don't know if you know John, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
he gave them to me. I guess they're a half size too small for him, so I was able to get a pair of hand-me-downs. But they're great. I'll try not to spike John in the race because he gave me the spikes. I got to make sure I don't step on his heel or something.
Right?
Yeah. But I'm interested because I know that at least the science that I've heard is that from that sort of 800 to K is really where the sodium bicarb is probably the most widely used.
Yeah.
Although I've never tried it, so I should try it in a workout first for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Like I said, with the difficulty right now is I have a lot of trouble motivating myself for workouts just because I don't have the coaching structure right now. So it's easy to talk myself out of stuff and be like, you know what? I should probably just recover and take it easy and recover all the time.
You know enough about training and the sport and the direction of where you want to go that you could probably write your own training fairly well. So,
It's
that
the it's the sort of the accountability factor, I think. I think for someone like me, yes, I know what workouts I should be doing. There's no doubt about it. Like I know like I'm at least within certain bounds, right? I know enough to say, "Hey, these would help me going towards a race. Might not be the best result, but it would be better than just doing long runs and a few strides each day." But it's just, workouts hurt. They do. You got to go places and they hurt. And
well, I was gonna say it's interesting you bring this up because it sounds similar to an experience that I had. So when I going back to the Olympic trials, right? When I was training to even make it there, that I feel like I went to the well so many times that when I finally made it and after I ran the trials, I think I ran aerobically for about 2 years until I started doing workouts again. I feel like I just, I think there were two things. One was I was afraid to get back on the track and see how slow I was compared to
yeah,
where I was, right? So I was comparing myself to my previous self of, I was fast, and in my mind that was fast, and I feel like that was probably my peak. Maybe it wasn't. I shouldn't limit myself, right? But yeah, to your point, those workouts were hard and grueling, and there were sacrifices made, and it took me away from my family sometimes. So all those sacrifices and all that kind of built up, and I feel like I just needed like 2 years to decompress and to get back on the track. And I think what got me back to doing workouts, in fact, I'm loving them now. I'm doing workouts again, and I'm really enjoying. It's just good for me. It's good for my brain. It's good for my body, especially as I'm aging. And I don't want to see my VO2 max just get thrown to the wayside because that actually doesn't decline as much as we think with age. If we continue to do speed work, we can really keep that number bolstered more than people realize. And so I'm doing them again and I'm enjoying it. And I think what got me out there doing them again was, yeah, maybe a little break. And well, I did change the type of race that I'm doing, right? So I'm not doing marathons, but now I'm doing trails. So it's a lot different. But also having patience and grace with my body. And that's something I tell a lot of my athletes too. So like they'll look at workouts on their calendar and they'll even leave me comments like, wow, this workout looked so big. I was so scared, but I did it. And I'm so proud of myself. And look at these paces. I nailed my paces. If we just give ourselves a chance and just relax and let the fitness come to you, Yeah, it takes a little effort, but you don't have to go to the well to move the dial. So I don't know. That's kind of what got me back into it. I think just easing back.
Yeah. Well, I think that what you're talking about with like having, patience and, giving some grace and space for ourselves, especially, us masters athletes, we need a little bit more recovery. Those cortisol levels don't come down quite as quickly. We've got
No.
plenty of other things contributing to them all the time, right? And so the one of the things I've been considering, I have not been, and it just I sometimes I wonder why I have this, and so many of us I'm sure have it, right? Is that I feel like I would benefit so much from just taking off the watch,
Yeah.
right?
Good.
That just getting rid of
Yeah.
it and not, so like even just going like, there'd be that thing. It's like, hey, go to the track. It's like go to the track, but take off the watch.
Yeah.
Let myself ease into each 800 repeat instead of thinking, you know what, I've got to hit 230, or whatever it is,
Right.
um, and just put it away, And even on like the run that I was on tonight, I was running around 7:15 pace out there, and I felt at certain times I wanted to like maybe drift a little slower, times go a little faster, but then I was like, you know what? No, I want it to be like I wanted to maintain everything. And there's also times where I was like, you know what? I feel like that mile's like a little that was a little short, maybe this isn't so accurate. And I'm like, why am I like what's the relationship here? Why what this isn't it's not serving me very well right now, and I think in some ways it's getting in the way. You were mentioning the VO2 max, right? My watch tells me what it thinks my VO2 max is based on these different things, and I'm affected by whether that's going up or down, which like I don't even have this on for half the stuff I do, like if I'm doing a Peloton thing or whatever, and it doesn't know whether I'm running trails or what's wearing a pack. It doesn't know any of that stuff. So I don't know why I'm more obsessed with like what this tells me than what I'm actually doing. And I don't think I'm like in the minority with this.
No,
It's
not.
like it's very common problem that I think that people have this like imbalanced relationship with their watch and Strava and the data.
Yeah. You know what? I almost think it's kind of like Facebook, Instagram. You get dopamine hits, right? Don't they talk about dopamine hits when you get a like or something like that on your Facebook
Mm-hmm.
page? You get a dopamine hit when you see, oh, that mile was 7:15 too. Nice. Let's keep it rolling. I don't
Yeah.
know. But I see what you're saying. Yeah, run without the watch. I would love to see what you do without that. Do you have any races coming up?
Well, I have the indoor mile,
Yeah.
possibly doing Hat 50K.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. A bunch of the Bear Right Trail guys are doing it, and we have a little bit of a side thing going with a bunch of Maryland runners to have sort of this like battle of the mid or of the Mason Dixon, I guess.
Yeah, you should.
And so I may do it. I'm not in 50K shape. I'm not doing long miles or anything like that right now. My next race is Heiner as well, but the 5K.
Oh, cool. All right.
So I'm trying to do a little bit shorter, speedier stuff, less stress on the family
Yeah.
and those types of things. The only other thing I have on the calendar besides Heiner is I'm going to be crewing at Western States.
Oh, very good. All
So
right.
I've got to get in shape for 20 miles of Western States.
And who are you crying?
I'm going to be crewing and pacing my friend Alex Hudgens. He's out in San Francisco. Yeah.
Oh,
So one of the things you talked about earlier, like kind of cycling back, was these kind of lifelong friendships that started with running. You got hooked in that first mile that you ran in seventh grade. I got hooked in my first race as well. Mine was, I think, second grade,
oh my.
a cross country, like a quarter mile cross country race. And so like got hooked, and then, developing these friendships. And so my big running friendships I developed in college and with my college teammates. And those are the people that I'm absolutely the closest with. And those friendships just, they're not going anywhere. I travel out to San Francisco almost every year to run with my buddy Alex, who got me into trail racing as well. But I think that that is something, there's something very community oriented about running, as opposed to, I mean, I can't, I mean, maybe it's because I'm not in any other sport really, but it doesn't seem like other sports are so community minded, that they have this like really, really heavy social element to it.
Agree. I know what you're saying. It's kind of hard to put your finger on because it's always just kind of been that way. Even in high school, I remember making friends with my competitors and then ended up running against them also in college and then running into them after college and yeah, the friendships endure. And it's amazing. I took my son, he ran his longest race last weekend, the Frostbite 5 miler.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
Oh, so did you see John there as well?
I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
And apparently, when we got home, I heard through the grapevine that Gavin didn't have a good time because you were talking to all your friends for so long. I warned him of this because it just happens. You go to a race and it's almost like a social event. That's where we
Hmm.
see our people. And that, we don't really see them unless we see them at races sometimes, unless it's someone, more local that we train with. But yeah, that's where we see our people. Road races, the same, are the same way. But I do think that the trail community is a little bit different. It's I don't know how to describe it, but they're all very supportive, and running is like having a family outside of your family. There's people there. I love it. Want to keep that true.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I think that, part of the reason why I started the podcast, right? Well, I started the Bear Right Trail team, and then the podcast was kind of pulling in my competitors from races, coordinating with them, trying to kind of grow the competitiveness of the sport in our area, and kind of found that that's what so many other people were doing instead of maybe trying to see a 5K that you could win, or, just hoping you'd find little races that you could win around. It was more people were looking at ultra sign up and trying to find where the competition was going to be. So it's like, oh, is this race going to be competitive? Oh, I'll go there and race these people here. And there's kind of like this different dynamic that happens with ultra sign up, I think, as compared to, run sign up, for instance, where you don't really see the race entry. You kind of hope that maybe you're the fastest person to show up. Whereas on trail, like in the trail running circles, at least this is my perspective. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I think that a lot of people are looking at start lists and trying to say, like, is the competition going to be there? Is that a good place for me to, like, do I want to put my training towards this event because I know that I'm going to be able to race some great people there? And I feel like that's a really cool thing that people are searching for that. And when we've put the call out to different people to try to show up and have like a throwdown, people show up. They want to race hard, and it's, I don't know, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you probably do that more than I do. But
I don't know.
I like I like the mindset. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, you racing your competitors is what's going to bring the best out in you. So I
Yeah.
think that's positive that you're looking for that competition to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it, it's a interesting sort of challenge, You want to have those carrots and things along those lines.
So
Go
I
ahead.
was going to ask you, am I allowed to ask the podcast host a question?
You can ask away. Go for it.
So you mentioned that your watch doesn't know all the other things that you are doing. So I'm just curious because you're a very accomplished trail runner yourself. What kinds of cross training are you doing? I know that you used to be, do a lot of mountain biking, and I think that definitely has helped you, in a great capacity with your abilities today. But what are you doing for cross training? Are you doing any strength training? Um,
And I'm dialed in, right? I do probably two bike sessions a week as well. At least when I like to, I like to do like, I don't know. This is a strange thing. I don't know whether anybody else does this, but I do these things called tread bikes, or Instead of, I know that like if you've listened to the Some Work All Play a podcast or follow David Roche's training philosophy, he has this uphill treadmill double sessions and workouts. I don't have a treadmill. I hate treadmills. I'll never run on one, basically. I do have an indoor bike though, and I think for sometimes like power limited athletes getting onto the bike and being under resistance, I found it to be really helpful to me when I have like a lot of climbing coming up in races. So I'll just get on the bike, set it on a really pretty high resistance for like 45 minutes and out of the saddle the whole time.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
just driving. So that would be a kind of session that I would do. Just basically, um, pretty high watts, pretty high resistance for a pretty long period of time. I'll do that. I also do, I do kind of threshold workouts on the bike as well, on the stationary bike, and I do regular mobility work. I do a lot of lower leg mobility. I feel like for trail running, I like to do a lot of foot and ankle work. So I do a lot of band work. I do like toe stretches and like really like little stuff on my feet and ankles and lower legs and then also like the bigger, hips and stuff like that. And when I'm going well with that, I feel a big difference. When I do regular mobility work, which has like a strength element to it, I feel much better. And the things I'm trying to start to add on is some weights and I'm gonna try to add sauna in as well. Probably
Yeah.
like two
Yeah.
sauna sessions a week.
Yeah. Two to
But I have
three.
it's a lot to it's just a lot to do though,
It is.
like so I'll have to start trying to do some workouts from the Y, I guess.
Yeah. I pictured myself at the YMCA in the sauna, and my thing this time of year is like sauna is just brewing with like illness probably, right? All that
Oh,
hot moisture, everybody's sick. I'm like, but I could wear a mask. That's the one good thing maybe that came out of COVID is now we have masks. I'm like, and then everyone, when I go in there with my mask on, everyone will think I'm sick and they'll move away from me. So,
so but you're not going to Lifetime?
oh no, I prefer probably going there, but I have access to both. So the Y is like right down the road, and I heard they got a new sauna and that it is pretty hot. So I looked at it. I haven't used it yet. I was using the one at Lifetime because I'll go there, I'll do a strength workout twice a week, and then I'll pop in the sauna for 15 minutes after. And that's what I want to get back into that routine again. I was doing that really probably what last summer or the summer before, but I feel like I'm more on my game when I'm getting that run training in, plus the sauna, plus my strength. Strength work really, I feel like, is a game changer for me. I just feel so much better in my races when I'm doing that consistent
Yeah.
movement. But yeah, the sauna, I want to get back into that and really give it a chance to feel the development, feel the change and hopefully the VO2 max, see that go up a little bit, right? You just sit
Yeah.
there and VO2 max is moving the dial.
Well, that's yeah, so I guess that's one of the, we'll probably have to wind down here in a little bit. I just one of the things I wanted to add. So I honestly I never knew anything really about training outside of the fact it's like, hey, you do speed, you recover, then you do like some long runs, like you have like a mix of things, right? And they kind of fed each other. But I never really took the time to think about like how we adapted to certain things and what, how our proteins were expressed or like all this kind of stuff that like you hear about now. And but I do feel like I'm having to think about it a little bit more because now as a like I've been a masters athlete here for a little while and I feel some parts of my body changing, right? I feel things aren't recovering the same way. I'm not having as quick a response to training, certainly, and I feel that I have to be much more aware of the impacts of exercise or sleep or nutrition or hydration and these types of things, and that I have to be much more intentional about each thing that I'm doing in order to get the kinds of results that I might want. And I'm not anywhere close to being there, but I feel like I can't just go about things and be like, all right, I'm going to do some speed, I'm going to do some long runs, I'm going to have a rest day here and there, and bada bing. I can't do that anymore. And so I'm becoming more interested in certain things. Was hearing about probiotics being
Oh
very
yeah,
important for adaptation, and
for a
I
lot of
feel like, yeah, and that I feel like my gut health has always been something that has been a struggle for me. We get a little vulnerable here with, having to go to the bathroom in workouts and races for almost 30 years, right? Like 25 years at least. So like I would have trouble completing workouts and races when I was in high school, and I still struggle with that. And now I'm, hearing about the sort of just like how that could be a problem with my microbiome, and I'm like, oh my God, shit.
Well, yeah, no, I agree. I'm actually meeting with the nutritionist, hopefully in the next day or two, because I used to take a lot of supplements and I stopped taking them because I'm like, I don't want to, number one, spend all this money on all this stuff. And number two, I'm sitting there taking like three or four things, and my daughter is asking me, well, Mom, are they really that good for you? Aren't they like wrapped in plastic? You know, like, the capsule's kind of plastic like. I'm like, that's a good point, and yes, I have thought about that before. But I'm I actually, to your point, as a master, I don't recover as well anymore. Like when I did my workout today, I was thinking to myself, I'm actually going to do a workout again, not tomorrow, but the next day, which is different from the training strategy that I used to do. So now I'm doing like one every other day, at least just for this week, right? This is a new training strategy I'm implementing for trails based on what I've learned through the ultra endurance sport coaching. And I'm like, how am I going to be recovered and ready to go again by Thursday? But anyway, back to supplements. I was taking magnesium, vitamin D, fish oil. I have to take iron. And I'm like, I don't want a meal of supplements, but I do want to take what's going to be helpful to me. And I do think probiotics are going to be one that I include because, fatigue and, sleep, rest, recovery, all of that can be gained benefits from probiotics. I'm really curious to see if that changes my game a little bit. And from people I've spoken to who are competitive athletes, they said, who are taking it, they've indicated, good results and that they really feel a difference. So my hope is I can start that and feel different in that respect. But the other supplements, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on how those go in the ketones.
Yeah.
I don't know. Supplements, I feel like it's a big industry. They're trying to make a lot of money. They are making a lot of money. And really, we should only be taking mostly what we're deficient in. But as a high level athlete, not that we're necessarily deficient in it, but some of these supplements really can help support our efforts. But I just want to make sure that I'm taking the right ones and they're actually supporting my efforts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, that I've been feeling off for long enough, just like a little off, right? It's not like I can't run anymore or anything like that, but it's just off enough that I'm thinking to myself, I want to try something else. I need to try a different tactic towards my nutrition, supplementation, and things like that. Because in some ways, like the data coming off my watch was telling me like you're not recovering from anything. You're not even running hard, and you're not recovering from that. So it's like at some point there's that data, which supports how you're feeling. You're like, yeah, I don't feel great. Is
Rest and proper nutrition, I think, kind of lay the foundation for us to get out there and do more of what we want to do. So, right, you don't put 87 octane in a Porsche, do you? I don't
well,
have.
me neither. I probably would.
Well, make sure you give it probiotics then too. I'll
Yeah,
just
put
drop it in the
a little
tank.
fuel additive. All right, Karen. Well, we should probably wrap up and get ourselves to bed here. Speaking of
Yeah,
rest, right?
us masters. Time for bed.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much for having me on, and it was a fun discussion. And maybe at some point we can circle back when we learn more about supplements and what maybe is helping us. And I'd love to hear, I can't wait to hear what the nutritionist has to say and really like try some things out. So that and ketones and bicarb, right?
Yeah,
Supplements,
I think what we should do,
bicarb.
this is what I think we should check it, and we should
And
have a post Heiner interview.
okay,
Let's talk
well,
after Heiner and see
okay,
how these things
okay.
played out.
Yeah, all right.
I'll take sodium bicarb before, and you can take your ketones in the middle, and we'll see who shits their pants first.
I think it'll be you.
Well, hey, I think I've got an unfair head start on that. So,
Yeah, yeah, you
all
go
right,
ahead.
well, that's a good way to leave it, right? Well, thanks, Karen, and thanks to the Bear Right Trail community out there. Happy trails.
Happy trails.